interest only.
So hard money loans, it's interest only. We lend at 70% of ARV. So if your ARV is 300,000.
So you'll do it off the ARV, not purchase price.
We do it off of ARV. So if your ARV is 300,000 and your purchase price is 150,000 and maybe your rehab is 60,000. So this is 210.
So you add the repairs into that, or that loan,
yeah. So people want to buy, the magic number. Everybody says I want a 70% deal. The reason they want a 70% deal is not only so that they'll make an adequate spread, but because if they're using hard money, we lend 70% of the after repair value. So hard money is a good way to sell something. If somebody has 30,000 in the bank and they want to get into a hard money loan, they can do one property. If they have 100,000 in the bank, they wanted to pay cash, how many properties could they do?
Half of one.
Half, right? But with hard money, they could do two, right? So you can sell more if you are selling hard money with it. So what happens? So this is like your dream deal, right? Everything's all perfect and nice. So what if your purchase price is 180?
It doesn't work.
It still works.
Come out of pocket.
They come out of pocket, right? So if the purchase price is 180, they're gonna bring 30K down. It's equity. So they're not paying you 30K, they're not paying me 30K, they're paying themselves 30K. Does that make sense? So they pay themselves 30K. So when they go to pay off this loan, right, they have put this, they've taken that, they're gonna pay off 150 and 60 because we still lend 70%. Does that make sense? That's
well, typically you see like the purchase price. So it's like 85% of the purchase price and then 100% of the repairs. It's typically what I see.
Yes.
Hard money lenders offer.
So we tend to lend between 90 and 95% of purchase price. We want people to stay cash positive. So what you need for a hard money loan, we talked about this just a little bit ago. If you had money in the bank, that's called reserves, right? So you do have to have some money. HGTV is a mess. They're out there telling everybody, you don't need any money to flip a house. What are they talking about? Wholesaling. They're talking about wholesaling. They're not talking about flipping a house. So reserves, you need about 30K in the bank.
Is that a percentage of anything?
For every 100K you want to borrow. And you're like, man, that's a lot of money. Why do you have to have so much money to flip a house? So what are the costs involved in flipping a house? We're going to give them 100% of the rehab, but they've got a lot of stuff they have to come up with too, right? Mm-hmm. So what do they got? Closing costs? Yep. So they've got closing costs on the front side and the back side, right? Because they're going to pay closing costs when they buy the house, and then they're going to pay closing costs again when they sell the house. So their closing costs are going to be about 7.5% of the whole deal. So when people are like, oh yeah, I can make $20,000 on this deal, I'm going to buy it at 180 and sell it for 200. What are their closing costs going to be on 200? There's no money, right? They're not going to make any money if they feel good. They're going to. There's a lot of people who want to wholesale. They're like, oh yeah, there's 30,000 sitting there. There's 50,000 sitting there. So their closing costs are going to gobble up most of it. They're going to have loan costs. So let's talk about what a loan costs. So they're going to have points up front. So when you get a traditional loan, FHA, VA, whatever it is, they have an origination fee. In hard money, we call that your points. So it's the same thing, right? A point is a percent, 1 point, 1%. So loan costs is gonna be 2 to 3% upfront. And so closing costs, this is a little weird because you're doing it on your purchase loan at the beginning, and then you have on your sale price at the end. But closing costs are only on the purchase, so it's on the 210. Right, so your closing costs is gonna be 2 to 3% of the 210. You're gonna have title fees, right? I guess that's wrapped up in there, but loan costs. So that's your points on the front. Um, you're gonna have interest. So we only charge interest for the days that you use the loan. Not every hard money lender is the same. Some charge more points and more interest. Some people charge less points and less interest, but they charge the points on the backside when you sell it. There's all sorts of configurations. I like what we do. I use our money, and that's why I got started with Searchers Capital, is because I wanted my money cheaper. And I like the way that they do things. But if I bought a house today, today is the 20th, I would pay interest for the rest of this month when I close today. So I would pay 11 days of interest, 30 days in November. I'd pay 10 days of interest. So that's going to come out at closing. So 10 days of interest. My first payment wouldn't be due until January 1st, just like a regular mortgage. So if somebody picks up a house now, they can get started over the holidays. I think this is the absolute best time to buy a house. First of all, when you buy it after the 1st of October, what happens? All the taxes are paid. I don't have a tax bill in January that's added on to my costs and I wasn't expecting, that comes out of the middle of nowhere. So this is a great time for investors to buy a house because they aren't going to get slapped with a tax bill. They're going to be in and out of this thing before they have to physically put any cash out of pocket. They're still going to have to pay taxes when they close for January through the rest of the time, but right now there's no taxes. So taxes are prorated as well. So they'll have some taxes. What else is going to happen at closing?
Insurance.
Insurance. Yep. We're going to have insurance.
Commissions or finder fees.
Uh-huh. Fees. I'm just going to write for the seller. Because that might be for a wholesaler. It might be a finder fee. You guys find a house, it's on the MLS, you negotiate with that realtor, work out something. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on there. So fees for the seller, but they're gonna have a pile of closing costs, right? They're gonna have their insurance, they're gonna pay some interest. They're also gonna pay, title fees and document fees and all of those good things. So that's where part of these reserves are gonna go. So when I'm talking to somebody about hard money, if they were doing this loan right here, typically it's 10% of that amount at closing is going to take care of all of this junk. So 10% at closing. You can just kind of do a round number and plan on that. So if they're borrowing 210, they come closing with 21,000. Yeah. A little bit of that is going to be their equity down payment. A little bit of that is going to be this mess, right? So it's not all cash out of pocket, but they do. So if you're borrowing 210, if you thought you were going to do that with 30, that's not going to work, right? Because now you have to get your contractor started. That's next. So we have to get the contractor started next. So for this loan, they need 60K. I'm going to erase this maybe. So they need 60K in reserves. Out of that, we just established they're going to take 21K to close on the front side.
I do want to point out, guys, every hard money lender requires some sort of reserves. You cannot go get a hard money loan with $0 in your bank. You just cannot do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that want to get flipping or do something like that, I tell them save up 50 grand.
Mhm.
So,
Some of them you get done with like 25, 30.
so is that pretty much like universal, like the 30K for every 100,000?
Not
Not
technically.
universal,
That's a
so
little high, but
different hard money lenders have different strategies. So our strategy is for you to get in and out fast, get done, be successful, get another one. Other hard money lenders, their strategy is, sure, I'll loan it to you with 15K in the bank. You close, you borrowed money from your uncle to come to closing, and now you have no cash. So what do you think their strategy is? They want that house. They want that house. The backside of their company looks like they're flipping houses themselves. The backside of their company looks like they're gathering up rental properties. The backside of their company looks like something else. We don't have a backside of our company. We lend money. That's all we do. We lend money. We hate foreclosing on anybody. I have a guy in Houston who has extended his loan. He's had his hard money loan for 3 years.
Oh.
That's how bad we don't want a house back, right? I'm like, you just keep paying on it, buddy.
How long is it supposed to be?
6 months.
What was the amount he borrowed?
What's that?
What was the amount that he borrowed?
I think he borrowed like 147. So he bought over in the east side, Promise Zone, they're off of Walters. He's had unfortunate neighbors. He's had people strip stuff out of the house. Unfortunately, that happened right before the code compliance came by, and so they slapped him with a stop work order because they thought that his HVAC was out of compliance because there were wires hanging out of the wall. So all kinds of stuff can happen. Right? So this guy, unfortunately, I don't know, there's just this one house, he's had other loans in the meantime, but this one house he's had for 3 years. So we never want a house back ever. Our goal is for you to be successful, and there's things that we do, like not charge 20% down, not charge 10% down if we can help it. We'd rather charge you 5% down and have you keep your cash reserves so that you can be successful in your project, because you're going to need that cash. So first we close the front side. Now we're going to get our contractor started. So we don't give you this pile of rehab money here straight out of the gate, because everybody'd be like, see ya, I'm in the Bahamas. Have a nice time at Christmas, And so we do hold that back. So you have to get your contractor started. So maybe you give your contractor 10K. We aren't going to give him very much money because we don't want him to run away to the Bahamas either, because that tends to happen, right? So with that 10K, he's going to pull permits. He's going to get a dumpster on site. He's going to strip the shingles off the roof and buy new shingles. He's going to get the project started, right? He's going to do the demo on the inside. So that money went out. And that money is going to go out and come back and go out and come back a bunch of times, because when the demo's done and the shingles are on the roof, somebody's going to come out and take pictures. Beautiful job. And we're going to send you the money for the roof and the demo and the dumpster and the permits. So you'll probably get somewhere between 15 and 30 back, right? Depending on the size of those jobs, what you put in your scope of work. So you get your money back, put it out again. Now you have your contractor tape, float texture, sheetrock paint, replacing a couple pieces of siding, replacing a window, all of those good things that go along with it. So your money's out again. When those projects are finished, you call, we come take pictures. So the way we're different in that too is that we actually come take pictures. So if you had a hard money loan today with me, I would come out and take pictures. So you would call me today and I would be there tomorrow to take photos, and you'd receive the money the next day. Other companies tend to hire a photographer. Like maybe they don't have boots on the ground in San Antonio, and so they hire a photographer. They have to schedule that a week out. So now what are you paying the whole time you don't have your project going because you didn't get your money back?
Holding costs.
Interest, utilities, all of that good stuff. So you're stuck sitting there paying that stuff. So that's the reason we want our draws turned around fast. We want boots on the ground in the areas we lend in, because we want to get you your money back so you can keep your project going. Because what's going to happen to your contractor if you don't get him paid right away?
They start another job.
Yes, he's going to go start another job. And now you are man number 2 on the totem pole. And he's going to be like, hey, man, yeah, we'll try and get out there on the weekend, but we're working this other job this week. You're like, so now you're doing my job on the side. That's not cool. So you want to keep that going. So we mentioned utilities. So utilities is the other thing you're going to have to pay out of pocket. If they're $1K a month, then you have it for 6 months. We'll just put $6K, right? So you've got utilities. You're also, the 1st of January, what's going to happen?
1st of January.
We start our diets.
What's that?
We start our diets.
Yeah, we go to the gym for a week.
That's true too, but you're going to get your first mortgage payment is going to be due. So you're going to have 6 months of mortgage payments. If you borrow $210 at 12% interest, your mortgage payment is going to be $2,100 a month, right? So if you have it for 6 months, you're going to be $12,600. So your person who has $15K in the bank, where are they at on the 1st of January?
Making them.
Like so far underwater, they can't dig themselves out. So the reserves are super important. So when you guys are wholesaling properties and talking to people about getting a loan for a property, showing properties, they always tell you, hey, make sure that person's pre-qualified. So people can get pre-qualified for hard money. We're not looking for very many things. It's super easy. You fill out a 10-minute application. We want to see 2 months bank statements where the reserves are. Now, some people are super organized and they're like, hey, yeah, here's my business account. And other people are like, oh, well, I've got $5K in my personal account and we have $20K in savings and my wife has $8K in her personal account. And, we have this account over here. It's really for the kids' college education, but they aren't going to college for another 15 years. So let me show you that again. So some people have it everywhere, and that's fine. People who have saved up to buy a house are excited to show you that money, right? They know exactly what's in the bank. They're like, I've been waiting for this day. I'm so excited to be able to buy my first flip property, my first rent property. And you ask them, hey man, how much are you sitting on right now? Are you ready to go for this? And they're going to be like, yeah, I have $15,000. And you're going to have to break their heart. Or they're going to be, oh yeah, I don't know. I think I have enough. I've been saving up for it. If they won't tell you, they're tire kickers. If they won't tell you, if they don't know what they have in their bank, if they aren't excited about it, they're tire kickers.
Yeah.
They're checking this out.
Can I make a quick comment on this?
Yeah.
Guys, one of the most taboo things, the joke is bring up politics at Thanksgiving, save money on your Christmas presents, right? Politics, sex, money, there's certain things that are just kind of taboo to talk about. When it comes to investors, talking about money is not taboo. How much money do you have to do this flip? And they should tell you. I agree with Alicia 100%. If they hem them all, you're wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
I got $50,000 to do this. I don't care how much you have in your retirement. I don't care how much is in your checking account. How much money do you have for this flip? And it needs to be, like she's saying, 50, 60. I mean, that's a $200,000 house, guys. I mean, you're going to need it. I agree. 100%. If they don't tell you, they're full of crap.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is, when you go show a nice house, like if you show a house in the Dominion, they're going to make you send proof of funds before they give you the code to the door. The realtor may meet you there and follow you around. Now that's not likely to happen with a distressed property, but still they should be pre-approved. So somebody's like, yeah, I got $50,000 in the bank and I'm looking at this house. It's $450,000. The ARV is $700,000. It's, there's so much money to be made. dude, you got 50 grand in the bank. You know, it's going to be 120K rehab on those big houses. You got to put nice appliances. You're going to have to put in a driveway, maybe. There's some crazy stuff that happens with big rehabs. And so for you guys who are also putting rehab on a house, you know, that's something to think about. Okay, big rehab looks like a home run. I'd put 50 in this house. Probably not. Probably not. If it's a house that's over 500K, you're looking at least 100,000 in that house because of appliances, because those people are looking for a higher end finish. They're going to want a nice tile backsplash. They don't want white subway tiles. Sorry. So you're looking at a little higher end. But so with a pre-approval, that 50,000 that they have in the bank, we know right away they need 30K for every 100K they want to borrow. So we're looking for a $80,000 West Sider that, you know, will someday be worth 210 if they put 40 in it, because they can borrow about, you know, 150 to 160,000 all total. So they can buy a smaller house with hopefully a smaller rehab. It doesn't always work like that, right? Some of these houses that are leaners, you know, now you need 150 in rehab again. But we want to get them in a smaller deal. So we want them in a smaller deal. But if they're pre-approved, we know that already, right? You know what you're shopping for. You're not showing them big houses. You're not wasting your time showing them great big houses. So what questions do you have for me about this part? Yes.
If someone owns a house already, say they bought the house cash, do y'all do hard money lending for
Yes.
repairs? So
Rehab only. Yep, we do
Rehab.
rehab only loans.
how does that work?
So basically how that works is we use this as collateral. So they bought the house for 180. Fantastic. We're gonna loan you 60,000 and we'll probably give it all to you at once.
For 60,000?
Or we might advance you half up front because most of these people have already done work, right? They've already done some work and run out of money. You know, the foundation's done and the roof is done, but they haven't paid the roofer. And they're like, oh man, what am I going to do now?
Well, I have a client that like bought a house that was, I guess, the mother's, but they bought it from like the will or something, or I forgot how, but they bought it out cash. So they own it out cash, but now they want to fix it up or do something to it. And so,
Yeah, so we do rehab only. We might hold it all back if they haven't started rehab and give it to them in draws, just like we would. So if they had a little bit of money to get started, or maybe we'll give them 10K at close and then they take the rest in draws. We're really flexible too. So other people have like a box, you know, the deal must fit in here. It must look like this. You must fill out our form for rehab. You must do this. Our box is sort of an amoeba. We're pretty creative with stuff. The other thing we could do is we could just do a cash out loan. So we could give them 60 grand in cash, or we could actually give them up to 90 grand in cash. We would give them half. We lend on bare land.
Cash out loans on.
Cannot be on your personal home, but there's a way around that.
So you like reading my mind here?
Because that's what everybody asks. They're like, oh, cash out. And then the wheels start turning. So the only way to get cash out of your personal home is to, first of all, put it in your LLC. Right? So it needs to go in your LLC. What's that?
You're saying title change? Your
Um,
property to your LLC?
You know how when you do a subject to, you don't change the mortgage, but you change
Yeah.
the ownership on the title, right? So you're going to change the ownership on the title to your LLC. Then you're going to refinance it into a DSCR loan, a debt service coverage ratio home.
would the rent be you?
Yep.
Would you make it?
Yep, you're the tenant.
And
So
you can do that, and they won't look at it as, hey, you're both the owner of this LLC, and you.
Have your wife sign that. Have your cousin sign that. You need a lease, right? You need a lease. Yeah, so you need a lease to get a DSCR loan. But when you own your house, I'm not a CPA. I'll say that up front. Not a CPA, not a lawyer. But when you own your house in your LLC, so you own your house in your name, and I own my house in my LLC, and the roof gets a hole in it, a raccoon chews through and makes a big nest in the attic and I have to have it cleaned up. You pay $10,000 to have yours fixed. I pay $10,000 to have mine fixed. I write mine off my taxes. It's a business expense. You can't write yours off your taxes because it's your personal property. So there are advantages. So I can only tell you from personal experiences, talk to your CPAs, talk to your DSCR lenders and see if they'll help you with that. But most people want to do a loan and we'll find a way to help you do that.
Does your company do DSCRs?
We do DSCRs.
So Alicia, since this is 101, can we erase this and just start over? Like, I want to go
Sure.
from start to finish, because a lot of people get confused about when the money comes out and how much you need and when.
Okay.
And Jane, who's got a property that they just looked at? Or
You want to take a real life example?
yeah, where's that duplex?
Okay. Somebody get you.
Yeah, let me do
Real
it.
quick, I did have one question
Sure.
about the requirements, because you mentioned that the 30K per 100. Is there any other requirements to get pre-approval?
We need a photo ID. We'll do ITIN, passports, whatever. But we do need a photo ID so we know who we're lending to. We do collect a credit score. So we want to see that credit. If you have 45 in the bank and you want to borrow 150 and your credit is 800, we'll probably take that risk. You have a good history of paying things back. If you have 45 in the bank and you want to borrow 150 and your credit is 450, we're not going to take that risk.
So it's all based on credit and then reserves?
Right. So we don't really usually look at credit unless somebody's a little bit short on funds.
Got it.
So,
What's a good credit score to have?
so you want to have a credit score over 660 if possible. So one of the things you want to think about when you're getting a hard money loan is your exit strategy, right? So that when you look at a property, number one is your exit strategy. How am I going to get out of this thing? So you want to see comps, right? Because you want to know if you're going to be able to sell it.
How many people will check that?
Yeah.
You say, well, the ARV is 300. They will do an independent review of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, it's not. It's 265.
Yeah.
They'll give you
Um,
70%.
That's like, that's why I think it's so funny. They tried to sue Donald Trump for overinflating his stuff. Banks aren't going to give you money unless they have looked at it themselves.
Yeah.
And if they agree with you, great. If not, you're bringing more money to the table.
Yeah. Lots of hard money lenders require appraisals. We do sometimes. If it's Denver Heights, we've made 25,000 loans in Denver Heights. We know exactly how much that house is going to be worth. If you're 2 acres in Pleasanton and you're a double wide mobile and everything around you is little 1,200 square foot brick houses, we're definitely going to get an appraisal because you're not conforming in any way, shape, or form.
Do y'all do appraisals or do you do PPOs?
We do appraisals.
Okay.
Yep, we got a guy who does them for 500, so it won't break the bank. So it's a fairly nominal comp or cost. So exit strategy. So rental, we were gonna look at a duplex, right? Are we looking at a duplex?
No, yeah, it's a duplex.
Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
730 Hammond. That's the address.
Okay,
Anybody wants to buy that, let me know. Asking price is 185 and I'm gonna pay 185 for it. I
okay,
believe the rehab is, let's say 90,000. And the ARV is 375. So
okay,
you get that loan in there and I send you my application. And let's just pretend I have an 800 credit score.
okay. We've got an awesome credit score. We have all the money in the world in the bank.
Like I think I'm like at 7.25 right now. So let's say it's 7.25 is my credit score.
Okay,
What's the first, let's assume all that's correct.
so the first thing we're gonna do is take this 375, right? And we're gonna multiply times 0.7,
Which is 262,500.
262.5. So that is your loan amount. And we know that we're gonna loan 100% on rehab. So we're gonna subtract 90,000. That's your rehab. Gonna give you all of that, no matter what. Mine is. So 152,500 is what you have left to spend on this. So this is what we'll loan for purchase price. Purchase price loan.
So that means I have to bring how much to the table?
It's supposed to be 172.
Yeah,
not
172.
Is it 172?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how much do I have to bring to the table?
Like 13 grand.
Plus
Closing costs.
closing costs, right? Usually when you buy an investment property, you're paying everything on the closing cost, right? So I'm probably gonna have to bring 17 grand to the table to do this. How much in reserves do I need to have?
So for your loan amount is 262.5. So you can just take 262.5 times 0.3 because
30, you mean point oh, like, so are you saying 3%?
78,000.
30%.
30% of it each, yeah.
So reserves
It's 78,750.
30% amount. So you need 78,000 in reserves.
78,750.
Okay.
So if I don't have 78,750 in the bank, Alicia's not gonna talk to me.
Better have an 800 credit score, and we would probably do it with 65 or 70 in the bank, right? That's the importance of credit.
Now, by the way, real quick,
A little bit.
this is Alicia's standards, and in my opinion, they are a little bit high. They're higher than most. So some of them, you're like, oh, you have 25%, maybe 20%, right? Which she's saying it is a little bit higher than most that I've seen, but they don't want you in trouble. That's
Yeah.
her. How many
Our
guys, how many
standard-
houses have we looked at that they've put in new windows, they've roughed in the plumbing, they've done all this, and then they stopped and tried to sell it? It's because they don't have enough in reserves. They're at a dead stop. And they've got to dump that property now.
Yeah. So we want you to have a lot of money in reserves for that reason. For if the market comes to a dead halt and you have to hold your house for 3 years instead of 6 months, like the one poor guy.
Okay,
So,
so out of that 78,750,
yep,
I'm gonna pay, so I've got this loan, I'm gonna pay, what do you think my closing costs are, guys?
Oh, 4 grand, is it?
Huh?
Is that what you guys?
Yeah, let's say 4 grand, right?
Well, let's say
A
5.
question on
Let's
that,
say 5 grand.
because she said 2 to 3% for closing costs earlier, so is that for the front and back end, or just?
No, just the purchase.
closing cost is usually 10%
Or I'm thinking points, points.
Yeah.
because you've got,
Right, closing.
Um,
Of the loan amount, so she's got costs. You're gonna have to pay Alicia for putting the loan together.
and this equals title fees, insurance, appraisal, loan fees, taxes, wholesaler fees, realtor fees.
If you're paying,
Yeah, if you're paying,
like the wholesaler fee and the realtor fee, they're paying. By the way, most insurance fees, like when you pay the insurance, they want you to buy a full year of insurance at closing.
Upfront, yeah.
Okay, so it's usually 2,000-3,000. Well, that one's probably 3 grand. Okay,
we only want 6 months.
okay. Well,
So
okay, so it's a
there's
6 month
things, we ask for a lot here, but there's a lot of things we do to make your project go faster too. 6 months, we only ask for 6 months worth of insurance. If you have to extend, then you can get an extension on your insurance too.
And what are your loan fees? How many points do y'all charge?
Typically 3 points. So
So 3 points on a $262,000 loan is how much?
It's about 8 grand.
7,800
mhm,
and change.
Yeah, 70, 60.
7,860.
And with the insurance, are you requiring it to be insured for the full loan amount?
no.
No.
So, well, yes, the whole loan amount for sure, but not the ARV of it, right? So
So if it burns down, she just wants to make sure she knows.
Right, we just want to get paid back. Yeah, we're not asking you to do this and, yeah. We just want to make sure we get our funds back.
So that's gonna come out of your 78,000.
Yep, so that whole mess, so it is about 26,000. So we'll just call it 26,000.
What about down payment?
You have probably already paid that. Oh, we're subtracting. So now you have 52 left. You probably paid 3,000, so this is closing costs. You probably paid 3 to 5,000. We'll call it 2750 to clean our numbers up. Down payment to the wholesaler. So now you have 50K left in your pocket. All right, you closed your house. Yay, congratulations. And what's next?
Did you say 2750 to a wholesaler?
Yeah.
Oh, you're like your earnest money
You know
deposit.
your earnest money. We're just
Yeah.
using that
That
number to
non-refundable
clean it up.
Oh.
Normally it's 5,000 or
Wholesaler was that? See?
there's a couple in town that only do 3,000. So yeah, I know two that only do 3,000. So
So now we own this turkey.
now you own it. What's next?
Start your rehab work.
So generally speaking, guys, if you've never done one of these before, generally speaking, I like to pay my contractors in thirds. So if it's a $90,000 rehab, is that what I said? When we start the project, I'll give you 30 grand. Okay, that's to buy whatever materials you need, get your workers started, all that kind of stuff. Halfway through the project, I'll give you another 30, and I do not pay you that last 30 until you are done. And that's what I use to make sure they get it done. Because otherwise they drag their feet. If they're just waiting for an extra 2 grand, it may take them 6 months to get over there and finish the light sockets. You know what I mean? And it drives me crazy. But if they're waiting for 30 grand, you better bet they'll have that done by 10 a.m. because it's 30 grand. That's how I like to do it. Every contractor is going to give you something different. Some of them don't like 3 draws. Some of them want 5 draws. Some of them want 10 draws. Some of them want to draw a week. You know, it just depends on your contractor. But whatever you do, withhold a significant amount to make sure they get finished. Because every contractor is real good at the first 95%. Every contractor sucks at getting that last 5% done. I need you to come touch up this paint. Why is that light switch broken? That kind of crap, they drag their feet on. Every one of them.
So when you're-
I don't care how good they say they are. They're full of shit. They will all drag their feet.
Contractors, have them show you their last project. And you're not looking at the, ooh, it looks beautiful. You're looking at the, wow, they didn't even touch up the paint in that corner. Wow, the paint slopped on the ceiling. You know, the ceiling's supposed to be white, the walls are supposed to be gray, and there's this gray streak down the ceiling. So that's the kind of stuff you're looking at because they didn't come back and finish that job. They're not good finishers. You know, if you open the cabinets and they go chunk when they open, right, they didn't tighten the hinges and adjust them. So you're looking for the teeny tiny nitty gritty. Did the deadbolt slide smoothly? Did they adjust that after they put it in and the house resettled after the foundation? So you want to look at all the teeny tiny nitty gritty.
Wait, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Uh-huh.
So how do you account for like other stuff that happened? Let's say that, oh, like 90 grand wasn't enough and they found other problem with the property.
So sometimes it's just too bad, so sad. Sometimes
95%.
if they bought it really deep, like let's say they bought a 50% deal because they bought their grandma's house, right? And it was a 50% deal and it's still 50 after we gave them the rehab. We'll still loan up to 70. So we can do a loan modification and get them some more money. Means they aren't going to make as much, but we're still not at risk and they're still not at risk of making nothing. So that's probably a good deal. Sometimes it's call your grandma. You know?
Or it comes out of your reserves. I mean,
Yeah. It's tough when contractors run off with their money, like straight out of the gate. Unfortunately, there are people in San Antonio, and the way that they make their money is by selling their services. And so they have the burner phone that ends 231 this month, and they've sold their services to 12 different people, and they go collect that 30% down. And next month their burner phone has last 6, 7, 8, right? And they're out selling their services again. Sometimes they do a little work, sometimes they don't do any work.
That's why it's important to make sure that they're contracted through the city and that they have the insurance requirements and all that stuff. Because then you go to the city and you're like, hey, this guy screwed me, and you can get bonded, you can get your bonded money back.
Yeah.
All right, so now we go do that. So what happens, guys, is when, okay, we're gonna start the repair. Let's say we break it up into thirds. I'm gonna pay my contractor $30,000 out of this reserve. Yes, Alicia's paying for the rehab, but not yet.
Now you have 20K left.
So they go work on it for a month.
And utilities, so there's a bunch of petty stuff you have to pay in here too. You gotta pay for permits, you gotta pay for utilities. There's some, some people let their contractors pull the permit, some people want to pull them themselves as the owner. So if the contractor runs away, they're in charge of the permits and they can hire another contractor to take care of things. So it just depends on how you want to work things. But now you have 20 grand left and your contractor is hammering away on the roof and throwing the kitchen sink out the window and all of those good things that are going to happen. And
So once he's completed that phase of work, you call Alicia, and Alicia comes out and takes a look at it, and then she gives you a draw.
a draw.
So you've got $90,000 sitting in Alicia's pocket, and she said, "Yep, he did $30,000 worth of work, so she's going to give you your $30,000 back."
And you're back to 50,000.
Then you give them that $30,000 because we're in phase two.
Yeah, so this is gonna go in and out and in and out 3-4 times.
So I have a question on that. So how do you determine if it's $30,000 worth of work?
That's another class.
Okay. So,
But I would be
mean,
happy to walk a
I guess
dumping
my
property
question was
with
more
you.
like, how do you know, what's the amount that you have like a scope of work that you follow? Or is it just like you said that it was 30 and I'm gonna give you 30, or how would general guidelines?
So for us, we ask you to turn in a scope of work before we close. And we're not hard and fast on that scope of work. Now, there are other hard money lenders who are like, well, you said the backsplash was going to be $200 and we'll pay you $200 for the backsplash, but we see you put in a little curb behind the counter instead of a backsplash, so we're not paying you anything. We're not those people. So we understand that there is no such thing as no rehab surprise, right? So maybe you get into the project and, your contractor's working on installing cabinets and he breaks the J pipe underneath the sink. Now you got to call the plumber, and plumber's like, it's an extra $500. And that's why you didn't put in the backsplash, right? We're like, oh, your plumbing's in. Congratulations. Here's your money for the backsplash. So we're more flexible. We're all investors ourselves. We all understand that there's no such thing as no rehab surprise.
Cool.
Other places, their goal is not to have you be successful. Their goal is whatever is happening in the back room, So that's just one of those things. So we do draws. We get you your final draw. You put it on the market. Did we miss any steps in there?
Yeah, we're missing a few. So let's say
What else are we
the one
missing?
thing that we're forgetting about is it took our contractor a month to get through phase one. I'm gonna have to make a payment to Alicia for 2,000, or no, wait, how much is it?
200 or 26.
26 plus 9,
26.
so 352. So I'm gonna have to make yeah.
And
So
maybe it's more than one of those, because by the time you sell it.
well, that's just the first month,
Right.
and then the second month. So that's gonna be chipping away at you too. So it behooves you. Why do you think investors are always just like, hurry? Because every day that goes by, I'm losing money.
Like, come on.
I'll be there next week. No, you will not. You will be here tomorrow. We got to get moving because $2,600 just to look at a broken house is not fun.
Some people build that into their contracts, it's like, okay, I'll give you 7 days. I understand that people get sick and cars break down and stuff like that. But if you're off the job more than 7 days, for every day after that, you start paying my bills.
For context, it's about $87 a day.
Mhm.
That you're just.
Yeah.
Working.
Oh, he just decided not to show up today because he got hammered last week.
$87.
Right.
It cost you $87 because
Yeah.
it's hungover.
Plus utilities, plus insurance.
Plus utilities, plus insurance, but it'll cost you $150.
Yeah.
Because he got hungover and couldn't come to your project.
They cannot
All right, so we do this over and over again. We're basically gonna end up with somewhere around 40,000 in our pocket at the end of this, because we're paying utilities and whatnot, blah, 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 blah. So we got 40 grand. Now we turn around and sell this property for 375. It works out perfectly. 375. Okay. I always tell everybody at 375, figure 91% is what I'm actually going to take home, because I'm going to lose realtor commissions, even though we are, I get that, but let's just say I'm walking home with 341,250. So she's saying full 90. Okay. I usually say 9%, but
341, 250,
yeah, I'll put that at 9% though.
9%.
I always say 9%, but
Okay.
that's where that number came from. So that's how much money that goes in my pocket after the sale. Now, I owe Alicia how much money?
262,500.
262,500, because I was only paying interest that whole time. I also am light $38,000 from my original cash position. You'll see that? I started at 78. I got to get down to 40, so let's subtract that 38,750 to get my cash back whole.
Yeah, but that's only 1 month in. You wanna.
Well, just for, yeah, whatever. Right?
It's gonna be more.
That's a fast team.
I know, let's, okay, I'm not gonna.
This is pay yourself. Always pay yourself first.
Always pay yourself back first, minus 38,750. So how much money did I make on that flip at the end of the day? 40 grand. What's the cash on cash? Roughly 50%. I walked in with 80, I walked back out with 120.
Yeah, maybe.
I was asking for Chris. He was
But my point is, what I'm trying to get at is the purchase price was 185 and the ARV is 375. And the rehab's 90. Okay, so 185 plus 90 is 275. And we set it for 375. So a lot of people look at this and they're like, oh man, that's a great deal. I can make $100,000. No, you're not. You're gonna make 40. Why? Because you have to pay Alicia, you gotta pay points, you gotta pay this, you gotta pay closing costs, you gotta pay your realtor, you gotta pay for utilities, you gotta pay for blah, 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 blah. You're gonna make 40 on that
So
deal.
this is the really long way to do it. I usually do it pretty dirty. So if you're out looking at a house and you're like, you know what the ARV and the rehab is. So if your ARV is 375. So minus purchase price, right? What was our purchase price?
185.
185. Minus rehab. Extra zeros there. Minus 15%. So this 15%,
Disappears into
your
ether.
loan costs, it's your insurance, it's your utilities, it's your, what you're paying your realtor on. the other
15%
side.
of what?
What's that?
15% of what?
Of the 375.
There you go.
So you can do this really fast on your phone when you're out looking at a property and be like, oh, I'm only gonna make 20 grand. This one's out.
That's what drives me crazy about those HGTV things too. They're like, he bought the house for this and then he spent this, so you made $1 million. I'm like, the hell he did.
Yeah.
There's no loan cost in there. There's no holding cost in there. There's no selling cost in there. There's no closing cost, nothing. Just like, oh yeah, he shot for tile all day and made $300,000.
Yeah.
Shut your tile.
I mean, why is every episode they're like in a tile store for like an hour?
Yeah.
Just like, do you like this one for the bathroom? They're both great. Pick one.
So that's your little shopping formula. Let's go back to exit strategy. This thing's a duplex. So at the end, you probably aren't gonna sell it, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna refinance this thing and rent it out. So what rule does it have to conform to in order for you to rent it out and get a loan on that?
On a DSCR, 1.25.
It's the 1% rule. It's gone up. So we're running out of board. with the 1% rule. Do you guys know what that is?
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
Oh,
Okay.
Jesus, swear to you.
So 1%
I'm gonna slap
is
somebody.
rent equals 1%
Because she's
of,
Cost.
yeah, cost or the DSCR loan or cost. So rent is 1%. So
Thank you.
our cost all in on this baby is a lot of money. So what are we?
Our
262?
cost is 185.90, so 275, 300-ish.
Yep.
Our cost is somewhere around 300.
So if you can't get $1,500 for each side of this duplex, is it a good deal?
No,
So if you're planning on
Bury.
burring, this isn't your duplex.
But we can get 1,600 aside,
Oh, it's cash one.
so it's a sweet deal.
Right.
Well, it should at 1% of your cost, it should cash flow. That's the whole point of that.
Yeah.
But anything above that's good.
So for your
And the 1.25 I'm always talking about, guys, that's if you run the loan all the way out and you see what your PITI is, you need 1.25 of that. She's giving you a shortcut on how to kind of do the math in your head. There are DSCR companies that will do it 1% of PITI, but your interest rate's gonna be through the roof.
Yeah, so your DSCR lends at 75%, so you take your 375,000 times 0.75. That'll be your new loan amount.
You have to have 25% equity in a non-owner occupied property.
Yeah. So you wanna make
every lender in the
sure,
world agrees on that.
so that's how you figure out really fast when boots on the ground, can I make this work? So take your ARV, you know they're gonna lend you 75% of the 375. If your 375 is a stretch, if you're like, oh yeah, that's what I'd sell it for, then maybe you want to think twice about it because a duplex isn't going to appraise quite the same way a single family house is. Right. So maybe you're like, oh, well, let me make it 365 and do that math. There are some places that will loan up to 80%, but the idea with the borough plan is to take your house and all of its loans and then roll from the 70% loan to the 75% loan, and the 5% swallows up all of your new loan costs so that you don't have any cash out of pocket. Now, ideally, as a landlord, you want to buy, people are like, oh, yeah, you're buying it as a rental property. You can buy an 88% deal. No, because the DSCR won't give me that. Only if it's cash can somebody buy an 88% deal. People are like, oh yeah, you know, it's rent ready. No, not if you need to use DSCR because they're not going to lend you enough on that property. And it's going to be really hard to get rents to cover something that high. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So yeah, keep that in mind as an exit when you're trying to figure out the exit strategy in the very beginning, because you make your money when
Bye.
you buy. So 70% deal is fine, fix and flip. Ideally, you're below that 70%. So when you guys are out there slinging 80% properties and they laugh at you, it's okay. You understand why? Because they've done this 100 times and they're like, can't do it, man. So, but there's somebody out there for that property. There always is.
There's always a sucker.
Yeah. So when you're shopping for hard money, let's just talk about different things that different hard money companies do. They're good questions for you to ask so you know exactly what costs you're going to be paying. Because people typically, if you call somebody else up on the phone and you're like, hey man, what are your terms for hard money? They're going to say 2 and 12, 3 and 13, 2 and 12 and a half, you know. Well, that's only part of the story, right? So the questions you want to ask is, you know, well, your 2 points, are you charging those on the front side or the back side? Because some people charge it on the back side and they want to have 2 points on this, right? Which is very different than your 2 points on your 185. So you want to know if they're charging points on the front side or the back side. You
So
want
is
to
the
know,
points on the purchase price or the entire loan amount?
so typically it's on the entire loan amount, sorry, that was my bad. So yeah, 2 points on this is very different than 2 points on 375 though. So other questions you might want to ask, some people have what's called minimum interest. So let's say you pick up a property, you're gonna do paint and carpet, and then you're gonna refi into your DSCR loan, or it looks really good, you know, somebody just wanted out and you're gonna wrap it up subject to and put it on the market. So if you're gonna do those kinds of things, what was I gonna, my train just left the station because I was thinking about the subject too. So people have minimum loan amount. So minimum loan amount is they want 4 months of interest, no matter how long you keep the loan. So if you're only in the loan for a month or 2 months, sometimes we do a little bridge loan for people where they're like, hey man, I have to close on Friday. I've been trying to find funding. I finally found somebody, but it's going to take him another 2 weeks. I'm like, give me your pre-approval letter. Let's close this thing. And then you close it 2 weeks later. With us, we only charge you interest for the days that you hold the loan. Some other people are like, yeah, we have 3 months or 4 months minimum interest. So when you sell that property, they're going to charge you the 4 months interest.
And also, if you're shopping hard money people, be very clear on how they do their draw process.
Mm-hmm.
Be very, very clear on that. That's always the one that bites me in the ass. Say,
Yeah.
oh, we got to send out our inspector and he's in St. Louis. He'll be there on Thursday. It's like, what?
Right? I need my money tomorrow.
Yeah, my contractor's banging on my door, right? So be very clear on the draw process as well. And a lot of places do charge draw fees.
Mhm.
So it's gonna cost you $200 every time you get a draw or whatever it is.
Most places charge draw fees. So I was asked, how much is it? How many do you pay for? Is there any flexibility?
I had one where they had an app and you took the pictures yourself and then you get the scope, you know, they had the scope of work and each one you do, and then that's what you send in and then they send.
That's pretty cool.
So
Yeah,
I think easier.
I have one company that's like, they do Zoom calls with you, basically.
Mhm.
You have to
Oh,
like-
this is just an app. You literally took pictures, took videos, so it's like I kind of was like, all right, it's this angle of the picture.
We only got this wall.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about strategies on how to prevent getting a draw.
But they do, but also if they do see it, because I remember I was doing it and I had the doorknob off the bathroom door. And just because they saw the doorknob was off the door, they were like missing hinges,
Yeah.
like,
Gina.
so they held back like 5,000 what I was trying to get.
Aw.
I was like, ugh. So they just
Yeah, you gotta be real careful about that, guys, because you have to understand their position. They don't want to give you money. So you buy this house for 185 and you have 90,000 in draw. Well, if they give you a loan for whatever that is, 172, and then they pay out your 90 on top of that, and it doesn't sell, you run away with it, whatever it is. They want to make sure that the money they give you is in that property. So that's why all of them do draws. I have not met a hard money guy that'll, hey, here's 15 to get started. They don't do that. You have to have some work done. That's why it's important to have reserves.
Basically how it works, you know, in the back room of the bank is that when you take out a loan, you take out a loan for 262 and we pay the 185. This 90 is sitting in an escrow account with your name on it. So if you get hit by a truck tomorrow and you haven't done any work and the 90 is still there, somebody can finish the project. It'll be okay if we have to sell it to somebody else. It'll be okay if we have to send contractors and finish it ourselves and try and sell it. But if we gave you 40 and you've really only done 20 worth of work and you got hit by a truck tomorrow and we go out there and it's like, well, we can't wholesale it without taking a 20K loss. Even if we fix it up, we're going to take a 20K loss because it's going to take another 20K to fix it. So it puts us in a really rough situation. So that's why that is that way. And people are like, but I don't understand. I spent, you know, $40,000 on my front door. It's like, and I've had people who put on a steel roof and fancy steel doors and they're in at $40,000. And I'm like, yeah, but all you have is the roof and the front door, and there's still $80,000 worth of work to be done, you know? So those kinds of things happen. So it's really important to be clear when you're writing out your scope of work, exactly what you're gonna do. So don't just say, you know, floor, say LVP in the main house, ceramic in the bathrooms, carpet in the bedrooms.
And could you break it down to where it's like, hey, you know, this flooring in the living room and this flooring in the bathroom. So it's like if they do get partial flooring, well, that's how you broke it down at.
So things that will get paid partial on, so there's not very much that'll get paid partial on. You have to have like the whole project completed.
Yeah.
So if you said carpet in the bedrooms, as long as there was carpet in the bedrooms, right, that's a line item. If there's no floor in the rest of the house, that's okay, because carpet in the bedrooms is a line item. But if you just put floors and there's carpet in the bedroom and not in the rest of the house, you're probably not going to get paid on that with anybody. So it's important to be super specific. If you're going to put in, the other reason you want your scope of work to be super specific is because it's going to increase your appraisal, right? If you get an appraisal on the front side, the appraiser is looking at your scope of work, looking at the condition of the house currently. If they do this work, will they get paid the $375 on the other side? So if you just put countertops, he's like, well, they might use Formica, so minus $1,500, you know? So it's important to be really specific. If you're gonna do granite countertops with a waterfall side on an island that doesn't exist there, if you just put cabinets and you didn't say build an island and waterfall countertops on it, the appraiser doesn't know, and you're gonna be like, but it's gonna be so great. And he's gonna be like, why? You're just putting a new countertop in. So you have to be super specific. Tell them what materials you're using. If you say, you know, new tub surround, well, is it that plastic thing that costs $150 that you glue to the wall? Or are you doing tile to the ceiling and you're doing decorator tile instead of, you know, $1.15 a square foot? So you can put tile up to $5 a square foot or $10 a square foot, whatever it is you're willing to pay for that tile. So be super specific on that. So it makes a huge difference in your appraisal. It also helps you hold your contractor accountable. A lady yesterday sent me a scope of work for a new build, and you know, the contractor put cabinets. Now he didn't put vanities. Were some of those cabinets supposed to be vanities? I don't know. He put countertops. What kind of countertops? I don't know. Is she going to be able to get $460,000 for each one of those? I don't know. So it's super important. But more than that, you know, so you are off the project for 2 weeks because you do go to the Bahamas in the middle of your project, and you come back and the contractor installed countertops and flooring, and you walk in and it's, you know, Home Depot countertops and rolled vinyl flooring, and you're like, dude, this is not what we agreed on. He's like, it says countertops, it says flooring. It doesn't say hardwood floors up to $10.50 a square foot. It doesn't say quartz white countertops. It doesn't say any of that. So it's hard to hold them accountable. So make sure you're super specific for so many reasons.
And do you guys have like a scope of work template that you give people that you prefer to have it filled out your way?
We don't. Other lenders do. There's problems with that, you know, because they don't leave you enough room to be as specific as you really need to. There's things that aren't on there sometimes. It's a nice memory jogger, but we don't do it. You know, we're like, you work it out with your contractor, because sometimes there's things like wallpaper. I've never seen wallpaper on a scope of work I've been given ever, right? But wallpaper is a new thing. And it's like, if you just put in his miscellaneous column $20,000, what's that for?
Slush fund.
Right? 20,000 is a big slush fund. So you want it to be super
Well,
specific.
and it's hard for her to pay it out in slush, right? We all know things come up. I think I've told y'all before, like, my trash out. Like, if it costs me $5,000 for a trash out, I'm putting 10 on that scope of work. I'm gonna tell her it cost me $10,000. Now I've got a little bit of extra money coming out of her that I can use forward going to the next
You
thing.
mean demo? Is
So
that-
yeah, demo truck.
I just never got that.
Yeah, I always make my demo really expensive when I turn in the drawer list.
Yeah, and then it's like the first couple things I tend to make very expensive, right? So the next thing I'm gonna do is foundation and roof. Right, I'm probably gonna mark those up on my sheet. Now, the funny thing is, you're like, well, I'll just mark up all of them and make some money. No, you won't, because now you're screwing up your ratios.
And you're out of money.
You know, then you run out of money.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to stack. So it's really funny, like my finishing touches, switch plate covers, $3. Trash out, 56,000. So like I scale it that way because I'm moving towards the end, right? I want to have that, I want to get as much as I can early on. But they're also not stupid. You can't. I'm gonna get one dumpster and that's gonna cost me $50,000. No, they're not gonna fall for that either. So it's a little dance you have to play. We'll talk more strategy on that later.
But
'Cause I had one time where they had a line item thing, and it was like foundation and driveway is what it said on there. And I put $10,000 because I was repairing the foundation. And they came out and inspected it, and they gave me $5,000 because I did the foundation and didn't do anything to the driveway. And I was like, I'm not touching the driveway, and that was a whole big fight. Because then I had to change the scope of work and da 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 da. And when they come out to appraise the property, they want that scope of work. So the appraiser's gonna look, yes, in its current state, it's worth 185. If he does these $90,000 worth of things, it should be worth 375. So he's gonna look at that scope of work. If you say $90,000 to fix the driveway, he's gonna say that's not gonna increase the value that much.
So basically, when I come to you, I need a scope of work ready to go.
Get the house under contract.
yeah, get the house under contract, get pre-approved, get the house under contract. You don't even get the house under contract, call me. I'm gonna give you a term sheet that's gonna have all of this happy stuff on it. It's gonna tell you what your monthly payment is. It's gonna tell you what your cash close is. It's gonna tell you what your points are. If you want it so that you can sell a house to somebody else and say, hey, you can pick up this house. It's a 65% deal. Like it's only 15,000 cash to close with this company. So yeah, you
Well,
can use my term sheet to sell it.
We haven't, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Call me if you're out in the field, and you're with somebody and you're like, hey, can you send me a term sheet? We want to see what the numbers are for this house. And you can just text me ARV, purchase price, rehab. I know you need a term sheet if that's all you're sending me. And I'll just do a term sheet and text it back to you.
Yeah, so y'all haven't seen a full one yet. As soon as I get Lake Valley closed, once we get the title cleared up, we're going over there itemizing with the contractor. And that's it's tedious. Because you're like, wait, what kind of flooring are you talking about here? What kind of this are we talking about here? So when we get title cleaned up on that one, I'm gonna walk, that's gonna be field trip number 2, right? We're just gonna walk straight through that whole thing.
What about like appraisal? So you do one appraisal, then do the another one, or you only use one for the whole?
They just care.
So if you hate the appraisal, and I've had appraisals come back from an appraiser, we have 2 or 3 appraisers that we use here in San Antonio. I've got another couple over in the Valley. One down in Corpus. So if one comes back and the people are like, I don't believe it. The house next door is 200 square feet smaller. It doesn't have a pool. I don't know what they did to it, but it sold for this much. I want to do the same thing. So we dig into the photos. So there's 2 things we can do, right? We dig into the photos and we write a rebuttal, sort of like Tidewater. Have you ever gone through Tidewater with a VA loan? Okay. So we basically dig into your comps, right? So it's like, okay, there's this house next door, there's this one, they're all in the same neighborhood, they all sold for what you think you can sell your house for. Let's see, same beds and baths, same square footage, pool, no pool, acreage on the property, all of those things that you use to comp the house. And then we just send them back and I'm like, hey, my people don't believe that what you returned was quite right. Can you take a look at these 3 houses? And you're just really respectful and you're not challenging their opinion because it is their opinion.
Appraisers have big egos.
Right. You just have to say, hey, will you look at these comps and please consider them? And lots of times they come back, 5,000, 25,000, however much more. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like, no, because this, and this. And sometimes they're right, no, because it backs up to HEB. No, because it's on the corner of Zarzamora and something else. And there's traffic going by at 100 miles an hour and it's a 5-bedroom house. What kids want to live there, right? So, yeah, but they usually tell you the reason and it's a learning experience, which is good. Other times I'll email that appraiser and they're like, no, solid on my value, and we just go get another appraisal. So sometimes it's worth $500 to get another 20,000. Because then when you're selling the house, as long as you're selling it within a year, you just leave that on the counter when they come to appraise the house.
There's nothing better than getting two appraisers fighting each other.
Right.
He said this.
Yeah. So when you go to sell the house, if you got a really good appraisal on the front side, just leave that thing on the counter. So it's a good tool for you.
Well, would that appraisal still apply like once you've rehabbed it? Like, I guess that's.
Yes and no. So yes, if you're trying to refinance out and they'll use an existing appraisal that happened within 6 months. No, if the person buying a house is buying VA or FHA, because they have to have their own appraisers do it. So no matter what the first guy said, the second guy might disagree because it's an opinion. So, but if you have an appraisal there, appraisers are also lazy.
So
Probably gonna pick that appraisal up, see which of those closed in the last 9 months, put them on their own appraisal, and have a nice day.